Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. So today I have a special guest on a special episode for a special perspective. So today we're going to bring on one of my clients that I've been working with for quite a while now. And we're going to get her perspective. So I'm going to bring Jordan on and we're going to talk to her about her perspective on things, why she chose life coaching and what the process has kind of been like. So you guys can, kind of dive in and get her perspective about things. So without further ado, there she is. Hey, Jordan, welcome.
Hey, thanks.
Let me see if I think I had a different background.
Ooh, that's nice.
There we go.
I like the purple.
There we go. All right. So cool. So I mean, I don't even know how long we've been working together. Do you?
I was thinking it's probably been 5 years.
What?
At least.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I think my daughter was 2.
Oh my God. See, that's probably the best way to guess. My daughter was about 2. See, like I don't have a reference like that. So I'm
Right.
like, I don't know. It could be 3 years. It could be 7. I don't know.
No, it's been a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you took a break at one point for a little while,
Yeah.
but, and then started back, and we'll get into that more. But so, what was it like for you hiring a life coach? I mean, why, what was that process like? Why did you decide to start working with a life coach?
So,
or me, I don't know. You can kind of go whatever direction you want with that,
Right. So, I wasn't necessarily looking for a life coach at all. I was kind of in a transition phase in my life where I had just started this new job, and I was starting to make steps in my life towards things that were just going to make me a little bit happier. I was tired of doing the same old thing. And I remember finding a podcast on Insight Timer of yours. One of the first ones that I listened to was Don't Be a Victim, or whatever the title was. And I remember listening to that going to work one morning before I started my shift, and I was like, oh my gosh. I literally have been living my life as a victim for forever. All the years that I've been alive, that I've been an adult, at least, that I'm aware of, I've been living as a victim. And so that was one of the first ones that I listened to, but I continued to just sort of sift through whatever sort of resonated with me each morning as I was driving myself to work, because it was a pretty long drive. I had to drive my daughter to work, or drop my daughter off, then drive myself to work. So it was like an hour. So I had the time to listen to your full podcast in the morning before I went to work. And that's what got me through quite a few, I don't know, probably months of really difficult times, until I finally reached out to you and was like, I really like this guy. I think I don't know, our sense of humor, I think, is kind of similar, and I thought that we would probably vibe really well together. So I reached out to you on Insight Timer, and we had our first, I don't know, session, I suppose, shortly afterwards. And it was such a refreshing change from what I am accustomed to. I come from a healthcare background, and I've been through all the hoops of the healthcare background with family therapy and couples therapy, and seeing the psychologist and the sociologist, and I've seen everybody. And it just did not really seem, you kind of get to a level where they cannot take you any further.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of stay stagnant. So once I figured out that this life coaching option was like actually feasible for me. It was a huge, like I said, like a breath of fresh air to be able to do something a little bit different, not so like structured and cookie cutter, and very just organic and natural. And very happy that I made that choice, because it's
Yeah.
having a life coach is way better than having a therapist, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Way better.
I mean, I like it too, I mean, I guess that's why I do it. It just, but what you were saying is so important, because it's, I did a podcast on this, I don't know, a couple of years ago or something, how to pick a life coach. And really, you summed it up. It's just like, if you're listening, this is why the podcast is so wonderful. It's because people can listen to me, and they can get my perspective, and they can get, used to the way that I say things. And there's plenty of people out there that don't like me, which is fine, like they're not supposed to. I'm not for everybody, that I couldn't handle the workload if I was. So,
Right.
so it's just, I tell people all the time, we overthink all our decisions, and we try to come at it from this intellectual way and all that stuff. And that, we can use our intellect. It's not that we're going to abandon it, but really, with stuff like this, if the way somebody says things resonates with you, it's like, oh, I get it. After they say stuff, that's a huge sign.
Right.
If you feel comfortable with that person, if their personality seems to mesh with yours, those are all the best reasons in the world to select a life coach. And they're really great reasons to select anything else too. Like if you are going down the therapist route or the psychologist route, those are really good reasons to choose a therapist or a psychologist. It's like whatever you're trying to do, those are really good reasons to select somebody, because that's what it's about. It's about conveying information in a pleasant, enjoyable way where it actually resonates and hits home, and so you can shift things.
And
so,
I would describe like the way that I mean, I don't know what words you would use to describe yourself, like what type of life coach you are, but it's very practical. Like, it's not like these like obsolete, like just like complex. It's not difficult to understand. It's very like, either you can choose to be happy or you can choose to be miserable. Like, what are you going to choose? And like, that makes way more sense than this like analytical, like diagnoses type, X, Y, and Z type of way of therapy. So I don't know. Would you describe yourself as practical? Is that like
yeah. I think that, that's one of my, like, that's why I titled my book Down to Earth, or one of the reasons, because like my perspective on life and spirituality is like, if it doesn't help me now, shut up. I'm not interested. Like I'm not, really, if my life isn't going to get better, like, I think it's because of my past. I came from 20 years of intense suffering. So like when I got to the point where I woke up spiritually and started understanding this stuff, I wasn't interested in anything but real stuff. Like I consider myself a spiritual realist. It's like, it has to have meat. Like, it has to be real. I have to take it, implement it in my life, and see a change. And if I can't do that, I'm not interested in it.
Yeah.
Because why? I mean, what's the point of it all? I like getting down to the core, and that's down to the core. It's, what's the point? I want a happy life. Oh, okay. Then let's do that. Let's get you a happy life.
I mean, it reminds me of like all the conversations that we've had where you're always digging a little bit deeper, like, but why? But why? Okay, now like a little bit further. Let's go a little bit deeper than that, Jordan. Because
Right.
it's very simple truth, and it feels right. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's empowering when you get there. That's It's funny because, you know, I denied my parents so much growing up and through my suffering years and all this stuff. And then, you know, but I do remember my father saying, if you want to get closer to the truth, you simplify. If you want to get further from the truth, you complicate. And when he said it, I don't know, but somehow that made it in, and it's a foundation for a lot of my teaching, because
Yeah.
everybody's addicted to the surface stuff, and they think that the problem on the surface or the specifics are what needs changing, and it's not that stuff. That's why you just go deeper and deeper and deeper, and then you get it to, it's either this or this. What's your choice? Oh, like, you know, it's like, that's it. It's like, yeah, that's it. It's just this or this. And you choose. And then you see, if you choose this, you get all this. And then if you choose this, you get all this. So which one do you want? Do you want the suffering, or do you want the joy and empowerment?
Right.
You know, and when you bring it down to that, it just simplifies everything.
And you know what you're also super amazing at is, like, whatever decision I can't think of a time where you have ever told me what to do. And not like in a derogatory way, in any way, shape, or form. It was just, you have never said this would probably be a better choice over this. It was just us boiling it down to those two kind of options, and then me choosing. And then not only have you never told me what to do, which has empowered me to make my own decisions and has got me to where I am now, but you didn't criticize me for the decision that I did make, even if you felt like it was the wrong decision. And I think that's huge, because we do have, you know, it's a much more like casual type friendship, relationship, mentor type thing. So I think it's easy to slip into, you know, sort of maybe being critical or judging someone for their decisions. And I've never felt that way. And you've never told me what to do one time. And, you know, all through the downfalls and, you know, the up the hill I've come, you've been supportive. So.
And that's what it's all about. You know, it's the energy has to be unconditional love. And the unconditional love is just support. It's not a, you know, it's like, yeah, okay, you know, you probably running into that building on fire. I wouldn't have done it. You know, but here you are. So like, let's just work with here you are. You know, so it's, yeah, there is no place for judgment, because there isn't, you know, I was blessed enough to see certain situations even before I started life coaching, because, you know, I mean, I was awake for, I don't, like 8-9 years or something before I started life coaching, and I was working in the recovery field and all that stuff with people back then, but also friends and stuff. And I remember one of my friends got into a relationship, and it looked like a textbook nightmare. I mean, I'm not going to get into the specifics, but it was textbook. It was like, look, I mean, they've had sitcoms about this scenario. It doesn't work out. Like, you know, I mean,
facts.
You know, like, seriously, like, do you see the writing on the wall? It doesn't work out, you know? And what was beautiful is it worked out. And it was like, okay, smart ass, you think you know everything, Glenn? You don't know crap. Remember, everybody's journey is different, and you don't know what somebody's going to do. Everybody has the opportunity to open and change, and circumstances always have the time to shift. So don't ever guide somebody down a path because you think it's right.
Right.
You know, because that carpet could get pulled right out from underneath you. And so it's like, oh, okay. You know, and I learned that before I started. So I hang on to that. But the other thing is like, that, you know, you know, like the talk therapy stuff where they won't tell you what to do,
Yes.
like that always drove me nuts. So I don't do, yes, you're right. I don't tell people what to do, but I shine a light in all the corners and go over the options with them. And I'll often give my opinion even because I can't, if I shy away from that, I feel like I'm being coy. And I feel like I'm turning into one of those people that goes, well, Glenn, what should I do? Geez, I don't know. What do you think you should do? And if I ever hear myself doing that, I'm going to choke myself because it drives me crazy.
No, but
I hate that.
It's because you taught, and that was like one of the foundational lessons that I really needed to learn at the beginning, was basically to be self-sufficient and to make my own decisions, because I was not at all capable or able. I mean, I don't know, you probably have your own opinion of the disaster that I was when you met me, but I was not at all capable of making my own decisions, and I wanted everybody else to tell me what the right thing was to do. So you providing that unconditional love as that foundation allowed me to grow into learning to trust myself, trust my intuition, trust my own instincts to make my own decisions, and either shit or get off the pot, which I got off that damn pot. So
yeah, you did. Yeah, it's interesting getting your perspective because, I've been doing this for a while now, and it's, and I think I have a fairly good idea because of what I do and how I help people and even their perspectives, because my clients give me their perspectives about life coaching here and there. So, but it's humbling and interesting to hear you talk about it. It's like, because it almost feels like a different person. It sounds to me, it's almost like you're talking about it. I know you're talking about me, and I know that I do it, but I guess this is kind of really, it leans into how I look at what I do, and from the very beginning, I realized that I would say things that I wouldn't normally say. And I would use examples that really clicked with people, and people were constantly, especially in the beginning, going, why did you say that? Why did you use that example? Why did you use that word? Do you know that this is such an important thing to me? And people still do it on a regular basis. And most of the time when people point that stuff out, it's a word that I never usually use, or it's an example that I've never, ever used ever before. I've never even heard of that example. And then all of a sudden it comes out of my mouth and they're like, oh my God, like, why did you say a brick fell out of the building? That happened to me when I was 4 and it changed my life. And I'm like, it's just, to me, it's completely clear that there's something more intelligent than I am that's guiding the conversation.
Yeah.
Which when I really, right in the beginning, when I really kind of caught awareness of that and I let it settle in, it was one of the most beautiful feelings that I still carry with me regularly, because it's, to the outside world, it seems like, oh, okay, maybe it keeps Glenn humble, but it's more than that. It takes all the pressure off of me. I don't feel any pressure to do my job because I'm not doing it. Right. And yes, it does keep me humble, because how can I take credit for something that I don't think I'm really doing? I'm just a channel, I'm just the messenger, and something smarter than me is directing it. So it's like, so it's just such a beautiful, enjoyable experience for me. This is why I do it.
Think about all, how, and I'm sure it's not just me, I'm sure it's all the conversations that you have with all of your clients, how they begin. I mean, at the beginning, I always had like a list of things that, like, okay, I need to talk with Glenn about this, and then this, and then this. But now I just come with, it's just, whatever is going on in my life, we talk about that stuff. But it always comes full circle. There's always things that get brought up that were not ever intended to be brought up, that didn't even feel like they were something that was bothering me at all. and it always comes full circle. Just the way that the conversation flows. So I second that. I don't think that you are. Um, I mean, we got to give you some credit, but you are definitely the channel of all of the information and the wisdom that you share. Because there's things that just that was not even at all on my heart or in my mind, and we somehow touch on it.
Right. And then you uncover it and it's this huge shift there. And it's like, wow, yeah, this is, I love it. And it does feel, I think it makes it more enjoyable for both people because it is organic and it is just a natural conversation and it just flows. And it's, I mean, one of my clients said it last night. And because I hear this all the time, constantly. I've heard it ever since I've been life coaching, that it's like, man, I always think when we're going to get on a call, what should we talk about? Or I don't know what we're going to talk about. And it's like, I've worked with people sometimes for years and their brain still does that before they get on a call. Mm-hmm. What are we supposed to talk about? And then at the end of the call, they always go, I don't even know why I asked myself that, because I never could have come up with this. And right. This was perfect, Yeah. And that's why I get out of my own way. That's what I think I do well. That's how I give myself credit. Because do I deserve some credit? Sure. I mean, I put effort into this, I show up, I do something, So the way I look at it is I get out of my own way well. I just kind of, okay, Glenn, you step over to the side over here and then just let it flow. And I do that well, You
do.
Fortunately. So I think, one of the, there was one other thing I was just going to mention real quick that jumped out at me when you were talking, that my life path was a certain direction. And this was towards the beginning. We don't have to get into the details, but in the beginning, when we started working together, my life path took me a certain way. And when I started working with you, I recommended that you basically went the exact opposite way that I went. And it was very important to me. And I remember you going, everybody else is telling me to do the other thing. And I like that you're telling me to do what you're telling me to do. Mm-hmm. And I found it, I liked it too, because it was the opposite of what I would have done. It was the opposite. It was literally the opposite of what I did do. So it was for me to be like, no, I'm like, feel free to go in this direction. I don't see the drawback. There's lots of possibilities and positive things that could come out of this if you go in this direction. And it was like, and you did. And I think it was a real learning opportunity for you. I think you grew so much through that.
Yes. And I remember that conversation. I was actually sitting in the grocery store parking lot and it was raining. I specifically remember that conversation because I said there was some resistance still. I described it as feeling like I was dragging my face across concrete. That's kind of how it felt to make the decision, because it was one thing that my family, my friends, my close circles were like, this is not a good idea. Yeah. But I did. And that's one of the times that you were like, I think that was maybe the first time like that you verbalized like, way to go. Like, I am so impressed with the fact that you are going out of your comfort zone and taking this leap of faith and doing what you want to do, because it really was what I wanted to do. It wasn't about what anybody else wanted to do. And I think that was the first decision that I've ever made at that large of a scale, fully for me, what I want to do, to find solutions, to find answers. And that I did.
Yeah. Yeah, you did. It was, and it, there's so much courage that it took to lean in. And that's what it's about. That's why, like, when people, like when it seems obvious that they should go one way, like to me, and then they go the opposite way, I think I can't think of an instance that I have not done this. I think every time that somebody does that, I pat them on the back, because it is about you making your own. It doesn't matter if the choice we live, everything is temporary here. Everything changes. It's fleeting. So if you make a choice that ends up in suffering, well, you just make another one to get out of it. It's really not that big of a deal. But I think it's more important to, to stand up against people and follow your own heart. So even when it's me, like, I've had clients that are, we've talked about it and pretty much settled on, I was like, hey, my perspective is this, but you do what you want.
Yeah.
And then they're like, they go completely opposite. It goes haywire, and they're like, Glenn, are you pissed at me? I'm like, no, man, I think that's cool. Good for you. Good for you for having the courage to stand up and follow your heart. You did. And that's what it's all about. It is about the empowerment and getting people to be responsible for their own lives and their own happiness, and to learn that they have more control over those things. And if they do make a bad decision, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah.
Well, and what is a good or a bad decision anyway? So.
Right. In a lot of ways, there actually isn't one, because if you make the bad decision, what most people would consider bad, like a lot of times that's exactly what you need to grow.
Yeah.
And get what you needed to get. So it's like, what is, when people are looking for a good or bad decision, a lot of times what the qualifying aspect of it is am I, like, is everything going to go smooth if I go in this direction?
Right.
But the universe doesn't give a crap if everything goes smooth. The universe wants you to grow.
Right.
So a lot of times going in the other direction. Now, I suffered a lot. So I'm a big fan of growing in ways other than just suffering. But, we can grow through suffering too.
One of your favorite sayings is that, and it's one of my daily prayers, is like, let me learn my lessons. Like I'm ready. Like I'm ready to learn the lessons, but let's learn them gently this time around. Like I mean, I felt like my face was being smeared across the concrete quite a few times, but may I learn my lessons gently. And you talk about that as well. So.
Yeah, and that's through my own experience. After about 5 or 6 years after waking up, just going, hey, where's the pain? Is there some pain there? Let me dive in, because I know there's peace on the other side. After doing that for about 5 or 6 years, I was exhausted. I was like, my God, like, there's got to be an easier way. Teach me my lessons easy. And then I started putting my head on a swivel and looking for opportunities to learn, looking for opportunities to grow, instead of waiting and running into painful situations all the time, or waiting until the misery took me over before I learned it. It's like, no, let's just keep our head on a swivel. There's learning opportunities every day in life. And if I just learn this and tweak that and learn from other people's experiences, see what they did over there? I don't think I want to do that. There's lots of ways to learn our lessons easy, so yeah, I'm a big fan.
I'm a big fan of not suffering. Well, I prefer.
Me too. That's what I tell people that a lot. People like, Glenn, you're so strong because you do all this work. I'm like, I think it's kind of the opposite. I think I'm really, really weak. Like, I don't suffer well, man. I do not like to suffer. So I do what it takes to not suffer. And people from the outside, people look at that and they go, wow, you're so strong to have made that choice, even though it was difficult. And it's like, well, that's not how I see it, though. Yeah, the choice was difficult. So, of course, it did take some courage, but let's compare it to the opposite.
Right.
the opposite was 10 years worth of suffering. Screw that. Like, I'll suffer, I'll go through something really difficult for a month and come out the other side, and everybody thinks I'm courageous. It's like, not really. I was just avoiding the 10 years of suffering that I saw,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we already covered a lot. We're ripping through the time like nothing. And I did want to, your journey with me had kind of a specific shift, going from all the life coaching stuff. And then you weren't too hyped up on the spirituality word or that direction or that angle. So we just kind of went at things, I meet people where they are. So, okay, that's where you are. Okay, then let's just deal with this stuff that way. And I tried to pull back on some of the spirituality terminology. I threw plenty of it out there, here, there, but I pulled back a little bit and just, kept it more on a practical level with more practical language. And then years later, you come back and you go, hey, I think I want to dive into some spirituality. I'm like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, good news is you have a really good foundation because you've been learning spirituality for the last 4 years. You're like, I have?
Yeah. No, I was definitely hypersensitive, I would say, to all things spiritual. It rubbed me the wrong way. I couldn't hear, as you said, the language. I was just turned off by it. So I'm very thankful that, you did use that practical language, because I probably would have been like, this isn't for me. But that has definitely shifted. I can't really pinpoint when exactly it did shift. But it's been a spiritual journey for sure all the way through, but I was unaware that it was a spiritual journey up until probably, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now we are able to talk openly about, we can use that spiritual language, and we can talk about things that I really never anticipated that we would ever really get to. I am nowhere near where I ever thought that I would be. I mean, sometimes I truly don't recognize myself anymore. Like, I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, I don't even know like who you are, but I love it. Like, I love this. 'Cause it's just what, I'm making choices for me, and I'm, really good at setting healthy boundaries, and I am on a regular basis, on a daily basis, choosing happiness versus, 5 years ago, probably even, 3 or 4 years ago, I would say most of my days were bad days. Like, people would ask, like, how was your day? And you just say, it was fine. But like, the majority of my days were bad days. Every day was a bad day. It just collectively rolled over into bad months, into bad years. There were good times, but I definitely stayed on more of the, like, I have way more bad days than good days. And at this point now where I'm at, I mean, I have bad hours. Sometimes I have a couple of bad days. But I have, as I have evolved and grown, those days and months turned into weeks, and those weeks turned into days. And sometimes it's only hours before I'm able to snap back out and ground myself and choose to be happy. But that was never even an option before. Like, choosing happiness, like, look at my life. It's miserable. Like, why would I be
Yeah.
that's purely living in a victim mentality.
And that's the beauty of it, that empowerment, finding out that you actually do have a choice, and that your happiness is not based on your external circumstances, and you're at the whim of it. That's no wonder why we have bad days and months and years, and I think it's important, because it's whenever we're going through something, it's this terminal uniqueness. We think it's just us.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's everybody, man. It's most people on the planet. One of my favorite things to say to people is, you know, how did I know? How do I know what you're, you know, I'll tell them what they're thinking. I'll tell them what they're feeling. Then I go, how did I know that? I can't climb inside of you. So how did I know that? It's because I've been through it, and so is everybody else, you know? So it's like, you know, what I was just noticing as you were sharing there was I kind of flashed to all the people out there listening to this, going, you know, that are having consistent bad days and months and years. And that feeling when you've had so, you know, I had at least 20 bad years. You know, I had some amazing times in those, you know, but I mean, exciting and wild and all this stuff. But I mean, as a general rule, my existence on this planet was depressed and miserable.
Right.
So like, so when people are, when you're in the middle of experiencing that, it's helpful to hear that, you know, you were there and then now you're not. You know, because that's what it takes, is that first spark of hope that maybe we don't have to figure out how to be different. We just have to have a little spark of hope that maybe possibly if the planets align right and, you know, it doesn't rain too much and everything is perfect, then maybe possibly maybe it might get better.
Yeah.
And that's enough. That's where you start. And then all of a sudden, because that just opens your mind, and that's what's necessary, is an open mind. You know, and then you can start planting those new seeds and having them blossom and you know, change your whole existence, really.
Yeah. And I totally agree. I think when you look at the big picture of you know, people that choose to live the type of life that we choose to live, it seems, you know, it's kind of annoying when you're in that miserable of a space. Like, we are annoying.
Yeah.
Like, bothered. Like, what are you so happy about? Because you're just so stuck in the misery. And again, I was like that for a long time, and sometimes I can still be crotchety and nasty like that too. But you know, it does. It just takes that small little glimmer of realizing and recognizing that, like, there are people that are genuinely, it's not just, you know, this, I guess, like, Instagram view of life. Like, I genuinely choose to be happy every day. And, you know, most days I'm successful at that.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time to get there. And it took a lot of work in it. And there was no like starting line and ending line. There was no like path that was drawn out for like, this is what you need to do. And then you'll take this step, and then you'll take this step. You just have to, you know, go with the growth, go with the
flow. Go with the flow.
oh yeah.
Yeah, that it's and that's why, you know, everything is organic. There's this intelligence out there, and you know, everything we need to grow is in our life right now. You know, it's like people like, well, what should I do next? Just keep your eyes open.
Yeah.
That's what, you know, like, I don't know what pissed you off in the last like 6 hours. I got irritated in traffic. There's your work. You know, my husband pissed me off. There's your work. You know, like, I mean, it's literally, in our life is our laboratory. It's where we experiment with these principles and bring them into play and implement them. And that's what changes us, is standing in situations in a different way.
Yeah. Well,
And
and you
then
say like, you know, it's a game. Like, this is a game, and it's not a game. And like, I used to believe that it was a game with like somebody else was playing me on the board game. Like, I was the board game and playing me, but like, I'm actually playing the game. Like, I'm in control of the game. I can move the game however I want it to move. I can, I have everything that I need on my board game here, and I can operate it however I choose. It's not somebody else dictating how my life operates, which is also like hugely like it feels so much better, again, to not be that victim, to feel like you, I mean, I don't want to have too much control, but you have a lot more control of your own situation, your own mentality, full control of your own, mental state than what you give yourself credit for. So
It is. It's empowerment. That's one of my favorite words. It's one of my favorite energies. It's just that it's empowerment, so that's what spirituality is all about, is just taking this random misery, this game of life that we were taught the wrong rules to, and then just all of a sudden understanding it and going, oh my God, I was playing soccer on the basketball court. That's what the problem was. Now that I know, what the rules are and how things work, then, oh my God, I can do all kinds of amazing things here. Well, this has been great. Time flies.
It does fly, yes.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Thank you for having me. And, again, it was just I wanted to take the opportunity to, give my thanks and appreciation. And, you've been a wonderful mentor. And I'm very thankful for the relationship that we have. So.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate it. And we did get to have a special moment. A lot of my clients I've never met.
Right.
And you came over to the DR and we actually met in person, which was special and exciting.
It was very special and exciting. And still you were the reason that I was sobbing ugly tears in my drive home. I was like, oh, I finally met Glenn. So wonderful. We've known each other for a long time and have never met. So yes, it was really wonderful to meet you in person.
Yeah. And it was great for me too. It's that there's nothing that can replace that in-person connection, so just that you can feel the other person's energy, and it's like, oh wow, for that moment you're just sharing the same energy there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a beautiful connection to be able to make, so I'm grateful for that as well. All right, well, thank you, Jordan. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to wrap it up, and we'll talk with you soon.
Looking for more? Check out over 200 episodes of Life Lessons in Laughter, or click the link in the description of this episode to connect with Glenn directly.